plenary session, and I will be working as the repeater. So I would like to hand over this session for the chair, and we'll continue with our presentations. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to request all the presenters to be here in the dais. Please have a seat. Kim. Mr. Kim. Good morning, all the distinguished guests here. So, without delay, I think we should start this session, this plenary session. This is session third one, and let me introduce myself first. I'm chairing the session. This is Reshma Shrestha. I'm associate with the Kathmandu University School of Engineering, Department of Geomatics Engineering. I'm associate professor as well as head of department. And short background, I'm also the alumni of University of Twente, completed my master's and PhD from the same university. So I have here in the team rapporteur, Sibaji Kesi, Mr. Sibaji Kesi. He's instructor in the Land Management Center, and he has been serving the government organization for more than 9 years. And more importantly, he is also the alumni of our university, Kathmandu University. He did her bachelor's and master's from our Department of Geomatics Engineering. So with this brief background from us, so I would like to start the first presentation from Mr. Eugen Chigbu. Regarding his short biography, Dr. Chigbu studied in Nigeria, the United Kingdom, and Germany. He joined the Department of Land and Spatial Sciences in 2020 as Associate Professor in Land Administration. He is teaching community services and research focused in innovative societal challenges and solutions using land-based approaches. He is an Associate Editor, Journal Land Policy, and Section Editor of the journal Local Development and Society. Professor Chigbu is a social geodetist. He investigates societal challenges and solutions using land-based approaches. His research and practice hinge around land administration and land management themes, including land use planning, land and natural resource tenure, land policy and governance, and action for transformation in urban, peri-urban, and rural resettlement. He is the co-chair of the research and training cluster of the Global Land to
Hello.
Yes, floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eugene Chibu, and today I'll be talking about the tenure responsive land use planning. Yesterday we heard a lot about different geodetic aspects of collecting data and improving societies, through different forms of measurements and visualization. But today I'll be talking more about the how-to aspect of actually doing the land use planning. So I'll be presenting to you a product of the Global Land 2 Network in this regard, and that product is called the Tenure Responsive Land Use Planning. But first I would like to start by telling you that the Global Land 2 Network is a network of about nearly 90 different organizations from around the world, and what we do is that we try to formulate land tools and through a multi-sectoral engagement of different stakeholders. And some of them are here, including the cadastre, the ITC, Chris from Korea, and I also come from an institution that is involved in this. Now I'd like to introduce personally my institution, the Namibia University of Science and Technology, where I come from. And that's an institution that is located. Namibia is a country in the southern part of Africa. In this institution, our vision is to be a premier technological university known for knowledge creation, innovation, and entrepreneurship, with a mission to engage and be a responsive university meeting the needs of stakeholders. And land use planning is a key issue when it comes to meeting stakeholders or creating impact, positive impact in terms of development. We are a center of excellence in land governance in Africa, recognized by the African Union, and we are an academic member of the International Federation of Surveyors. We're a leading member of the GLTN. I'm a partner of GLTN, where we actually co-lead the research and training cluster, and we participated strongly in pioneering this particular product. So the tenure responsive land use planning, I'll start by talking about reflecting on the challenges. One thing that is very clear is that land use decisions goes beyond mere social and technical. It does involve environment and other cultural issues. And so it stands at the center of what planners do. But planners can't do it without society and the geodesists, the land surveyors, the quantity surveyors, and all the professions within the land surveying. And so developing a practical knowledge is very, very critical for the GLTN, and that's what we call the land tool. A land tool is any product that can be used to solve a land problem. And land use planning is a way of solving land problems through planning. However, to do that, it's important that one has a how-to guide on doing that. And often land use planning exists, but it's not formally linked to tenure security. And there's been a lot of directives and guides on these issues, but what the GLTN did is to link land use planning in general with tenure security issues, because land use planning presents a platform for stakeholders to engage, presents a platform to solve land problems, and so can be linked to any other land issues. But because the Global Land 2 Network has a focus on tenure security, we went and tried to conceptualize a tenure responsive product. So the key assumptions in producing a guide is that the way lands are held and how people use and exercise rights over land can have tremendous influence. Obviously, from an environmental perspective, those who have very secure rights on land tend to use it and protect it and invest in restoration than those who do not have such security. Also, the pattern of land allocation and the level of tenure security people have can determine the quality of their development. I understand here in Nepal, the local governments have a very strong say in development, and this is very important, but that also means that land within the local governments should be held and used appropriately. So no matter how land use planning is defined, and we all know it's a literature of controversy, various professions will define it however they want to, but no matter how you define it, what is important always come up is that it involves decisions and activities that represent future uses of land and attempt to organize them in such a way that it will improve the living conditions of not just the people, but the environment in which the people live in. So with that said, land use planning and tenure security are both critical for development, and they have a relationship. Now, the relationship in land use planning is that land use planning and tenure security is a condition which people can have in order to participate, to enjoy development and feel committed to development. But land use planning itself is a process, and as a process, it has the capacity to improve these sort of conditions. For instance, land use planning dictates of uses. It dictates ownerships and rights, and even goes as far as controlling how we use land by introducing restrictions, benefits, and privileges. And this embodiment is property right when we look at it from the perspective of tenure security. Now, it also defines the land and space allocation, which reflects to size of land. Furthermore, it detects the period of holding, which is what we basically call tenure, and it has the potential to assert provability, who owns what and where and for what, and that's usually where security comes in. Now, when you look at these four elements that land use planning tends to deal with, those four elements also reflect the key embodiment of what we call tenure security. For tenure security, you need provability. One needs to know the tenure. The size of your land can influence your perception of what you use it for and how you can use it, and the right that is embedded in it matters. So there is a relationship between tenure, land tenure, or tenure security, and land use planning itself. And the whole assumption here is that while planning the use of land, you might as well seize the opportunity to plan the tenure aspect. So, what then is tenure-responsive land use planning? It simply is a participatory and tenure-focused, gender-sensitive, and propose tool that is based constantly on counter-check processes and flexible monitoring to ensure that sustainable use of land is achieved together with secure use. Now, this guideline or practical guides that I'm trying to show you has gone through an evolution. It started off with a concept, and these documents are all free online. It started off with a concept, a policy guide, where the idea was introduced as far back as 2016, and then it was published in a scientific journal to also test the scientific aspect of it, because it comes from the assumption that planning sometimes, or in most cases, actually impede tenure, because planning is very much, planning by planners in this case, is most times focused on controlling land, and because it's about controlling land, many a times we impede the freedom people should enjoy or the privilege they should naturally enjoy on land. Some of these sort of freedom, privileges, even quantum of interest are can be usually cultural, within local governments. And when planners or planning is done, it does restrict some of them. And so we went through the theory, and then finally we introduced the practical guide. The practical guide was published in 2021. And why am I talking about the practical guide? Because everything we're discussing yesterday, with the exception of the presentation on land use planning directive, which I think is heading towards this direction, to deal with the how-to aspect of actually doing the land use planning within a local environment where we can draw all the good ideas that were presented and then transform them or translate them into direct activities that would improve living conditions of people. So I got that from yesterday, and that actually is exactly what the tenure responsive land use planning is. However, it's important to mention that it's a generic guide. So when you go into this document, what you actually get are the steps that has to be taken in municipalities in order to do the land use planning so as to not just secure the use of land, but also the tenure. The document itself has an ease of use because the policy document has been translated already to French. And so for countries that are non-English speaking and maybe French speaking, have access to it. And of course, coming from the UN, it is free online. At the same time, it's also been adopted by other academics and is being talked about and being adapted in various ways. What you see here is an article talking about it in Ghana, and that's a policy guide talking about it in Uganda. But what it just says, the reason I'm showing you this is that it is a document you can take, look and follow the land use planning guide, and then adapt it to your local reality. So it's not, a fixed. It's not a specific way of doing land use planning, but it provides the guide. Now, why do we talk about this sort of land use planning? It's because usually when we talk about land use planning, many people tend to look at the mapping or the land use map to be, the land use plan. But here we are trying to reflect that every other step that was taken during the process of planning, including the documents, can provide that element of provability which I talked about earlier on. So the area specification, the textual presentations that I used, the statements of plan, documentary attachments, obviously the maps and various sort of visual evidences are important. We can't do this without the local plans. And all sort of data, including the processes, can provide provability. But going forward, what makes it important and what makes it unique is because it follows what planners would call the cyclic planning system. However, it does talk about it being iterative. That means that it's not a rigid process. It's a process where at any point a process becomes impossible or unagreeable. That process, you can always go backwards rather than keep going forward. So it's a backward and forwards moving kind of process. Now, of course, there's no time for me to go into this, but when you go into this guide, you would get the step-by-step approach and what has to be done in any of those steps, up to 9 different steps, starting with the initiation of land use project. And what makes it different from other land use planning guide is that each of these steps provides an opportunity for investigating and looking into tenure issues. Let's say, for instance, assessing and analyzing the tenure issues. To deal with tenure issues, it would make sense to look into gender, youth, and other sort of matters. And also, even in gender and youth, it's good to go into disaggregating the data to understand who owns what. For instance, we like to talk about women being disadvantaged, but women are disadvantaged. But in reality, when you do the analysis, you realize that the way not every woman is disadvantaged. Mostly politically empowered women tend to have an advantage over women who are not politically empowered. In areas we've worked in, women who are single have a different experience from women who are married. Women who are widows have a different experience from women who are married. Women who are educated can have a different experience from women who are illiterate, and. Of course, women who are poor and women who are rich. And this is very, very important when you do land use planning, to actually tease out how this affects all women or all youth. So this is the process, and the guideline is very much online, but it reflects exactly what you can do at each step. And so this particular part you can actually use as a guide in doing your land use planning. But what's also critical is that in the guide you have questions you need to ask and answers you need to get in order to ensure that tenure security is improved, as well as the detailed steps. Now, in terms of applicability, both in principle and practice, the land use planning, the tenure responsive land use planning, every part of what it goes for is related to land use, recordation of land rights, women land rights, or youth land rights. And these are very much in line with each of the SDGs from 1 to 17, as well as the new urban agenda. So what I've done here is to link each of the SDGs with an article in the new urban agenda, and on the right you would see an aspect of the tenure responsive land use planning guide that actually deals with it. So finally, there's been field applications. The tenure responsive land use planning is currently being used the Land at Scale project in Uganda, which is a project of the Netherlands government. And together with all other stakeholders, it's also being used in Namibia. In the process, you will find out that there are other tools that relate to it. For instance, the STDM, the Social Tenure Domain Model of the UN Habitats, the Global Land Tool Network. However, it's also important to mention that this tool is not purely for UN Habitats or Global Land Tool Network projects. It's simply open, and it can fit very much any other tool. But it doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It's still a work in the moment. We don't have a training manual. Time ago, my university actually had to train people from Uganda to use this, so we are still working on possibilities of having a training manual. And also the GLTN is open to welcome stakeholders who are willing to engage in the use of this tenure responsive land use planning guide, because that's the only way we can update the experiences we are getting and to, improve on expected outcomes. So with that said, I'd like to say thanks very much, and that's actually what I want to share with you.
Thank you. Mr. Chigbu, you are on time, 20 minutes. Very impressive presentations. He talked about the linkages between land use planning and tenure security. Firstly, he came up with the interlinkages with very keyword size, tenure security and property rights. Then he has given a clear overview of the tenure responsive land use planning that DLTN is carrying on. And a very good message about land use plan is more than a land use map. And also the very interlinkages between all the sustainable development goals and land use planning. Thank you. I think we will go to the next presentation because we are lacking time, but he has completed just in 20 minutes. Maybe end of the session, if we have some queries, then we'll just take it. Or now I will ask to have the second presentation. And one more, Dr. Kim, you're already here, so I would like to request and just to take the seat. Tingri, but it's very difficult for me to pronounce. Tingri, but Tingri, sorry, Tinduli. Let me give his short introduction. He's a founder and consultant at Nomad System LLC. He has been working in the land, urban development, and geoinformation sector since 2000 and was involved in the major policy and strategy, lawmaking, and capacity building activities in Mongolia as an advisor to the government agency for land management and administration, geodesy, cartography. Since 2010, he is working in the private sector and works as expert for very technical to more policy and legislative projects related to land, urban development, and geoinformation. He has a master's degree in geoinformation and observation, specialized in land administration from ITC University of Twente in Netherlands. So, floor is yours.
Okay. Namaste. I am very happy to be here and to present and share my experiences and tell you a little bit about the case in Mongolia. So I will Hello. Okay. Yesterday, our colleagues, the presenters, discussed about the national territorial planning and the levels of the different planning. I will discuss about how these plans are implemented on the ground and the actual works are going on based on these plans. So I will discuss why we need to develop a certain area which is an underdeveloped area. We call it GER areas. GER means home in Mongolia, home or the portable Mongolian dwelling fit for the nomadic lifestyle. Yesterday I discussed with colleagues from Nepal and found out that there are some people who are called Mongolian in the northeastern part of the country, and they have the same word GER as home. So there are similarities, and it was interesting to find out about it. So then next topic is acknowledging these areas and planning and how the plans were implemented with designing and construction of the infrastructure works and some housing improvements once we have infrastructure. Then, if there will be time, some lessons learned. I just want to note that this present the Ulaanbaatar Urban Services and GER Areas Development Program, for which I am working as a consultant and team leader of the development of these areas, housing development, which is now just now starting. So what is GER area? The picture, if you can see, we have the picture, and here is a GER. This is traditional Mongolian dwelling, very easily taken down and built within 30-40 minutes. 2 adults can do it. People refer to it as a tent, but it is really a home, and it's comfortable, warm in the winter time, and quite nice in the summertime. So the GER areas, people think about the GER areas as a slum area. It is not slum. They have, what is the difference is that this area has a fully pledged land tenure. So all the people living here, they own their land. So land ownership tenure is there. Usually it's a 400 square meter plots, very low density, only electricity is provided, no sewerage, no water, no heating. They are like coal-based briquettes are used for heating, or we have water kiosks and sewerage is on the plot as a pit latrine. So it's very unhealthy. Because of this area, people living there have some health issues, as well as huge problem with the air pollution. Air pollution not only coming from the heating of the coal-based briquettes, but also the dust and so on. So it's a major pollution area, and government declared that this is a disaster, and we have to take special measures to handle this area. Just to give an idea, this is the core city, which is the built-up area, and this yellowish color is the gear areas, which is about 2/3 of the entire city. So it's a big, huge area. Also, about half of the city's population is residing in this area. And it is expanding. I have been doing some studies, and this is from 2000 to 2009. The pink is from 2000, and the blue is from 2009. It's expanding, and even more has expanded since then. Because people can come and get land. Land is free of charge, allocated by law as a private land. So people come and get land and build their gears initially, then build some housing, brick house or wooden houses. So it's an affordable mean of housing. But government did not provide the basic urban services, and that's the problem. And how it looks in the winter. Ulaanbaatar is the capital, and it's the coldest capital in the world. So it's really cold, and this is the polluted areas. You see the pollution coming up the chimneys, and really bad in the winter time. And when there is a wind, it's very nice and clear, but no wind. It is in the valley of the four mountains. So the smoke and air pollution settles in the valley and stays there. And this is a picture showing the population density. The core city built-up area is high rises, medium rises. So most people are here. And then we have also the gear areas, which is very low density. And also this is vast area, which means providing infrastructure is expensive. If you provide infrastructure to each plot, it will be very expensive. And this is also the job place. The gear areas, they are lacking urban services, as well as commercial and private services. So all the jobs, as you can see here in the city center. So people have to travel in the morning to the city and go out in the afternoon. So this is also a traffic jam issue. So this is the gear area, and what we are going to do about it. So for that we need to look at the urban development, what's happening. So this is the city center. After 2000, the urban development, the housing and the offices development has intensified in the city. And you can see these red rectangles are new buildings after 2000. So the private sector has the money, they come and build when there is access to the infrastructure. And only here you can see is one area which is not, there were no new buildings because it's Russian embassy, you cannot build there. But all other places where there is some empty space, the private sector comes and builds. Another example, the picture here is from 2007, and this is from 2017. It's very close to the core city center, and already had infrastructure, the trunk infrastructure in the area. So what happened is the land was privatized, so the landowners just sold their land to the private sector, and private sector has developed this area in 10 years, lots of high-rise buildings. Please look at this red rectangle. And this is how it looks inside. Because it's private sector-led development and we do not have very good enforcement of the standards and urban zoning rules. What happened is too dense, no public service, no public school, no kindergartens. And this is the main road, which is always too many cars. So, and the red dot I showed is how it looks on the ground. You see still there is a gear and a small house. So it was gear area, the landowner could not agree with the developer on the price, so he was just left there, and they built around. And this guy now cannot sell it because you cannot really build nothing in this area. So what it shows is if you don't interfere as a government, some people will be left out and they will suffer from it. So this is the situation. So what happened is that we had renewed the master plan in 2014. So the master plan is to 2020. We recognize that this is too much concentration in the only core area, so we need to decentralize, build more centers, so-called sub-centers. And what is interesting is this master plan recognized Ger areas as an area that needs to be developed. Before this master plan, the Ger area was just left out of the planning. It was not planned, means nothing will be done there, no investments are going to be invested there. Why this was so? Mongolia was a socialist country, and in 1990 we transformed from socialist to a free democratic country. So before 1990 all the plans were made and the Ger areas were considered as a temporary area to be developed into apartment housing. So that's why it was left out, and that legacy continued and continued, and only 2020 we said, okay, this is not good, and this is becoming worse because of the air pollution and all the problems. Then it was included. So it was recognized and included, and the approach how to develop was also formulated. Central Ger area, middle Ger area, and fringe area. Central area is close to the city center and has easy access to the trunk infrastructure, so it can be developed into high rises. Then middle Ger area will be developed partially with the provision of the trunk infrastructure connection, and then individual sources like maybe individual heating for the area and so on. So the fringe area is planned to be as an area of detached housing and town housing style with the independent sources of sewerage, of heating and so on. So the good thing is that it was recognized by the government and it was planned. So based on this plan, government discussed with the international donors, mainly with the ADB and also with contribution from the European Investment Bank to develop the Ger areas for 10 years. Start with 6 sub-centers where we will provide the connection to the trunk infrastructure. Then in some areas also heating plants and so on. It's a huge investment of Mongolia. It's a huge investment of 344 million, and the plans were made. So we have the master plan. Based on the master plan, we have the sub-center development plan, but that one is the more for the infrastructure plan, and the lowest level is the detailed development plan, saying what building, for area ratio, plot to building area ratio, and so on. So the plan is there. Based on the plan, we have started with the infrastructure. All the plans for the infrastructure were done, and then also the plans for the detailed development plan. So for the infrastructure, the plan, we have the unit district planning. We have the master plan and then district planning. So the district planning says how many people will live in this area in the future, and therefore what capacity of the heating, what sources of water and electricity needs to be. So based on that, the plan is made, all the detailed engineering infrastructure plans, and the actual works are happening now. We have completed the 3 tranches and first tranche is completed, and the sub-centers are provided. The first two sub-centers are provided with all the infrastructure, the water, the heating, and the road networks are provided. And along with the infrastructure, the basic urban services like schools, community development center, and similar buildings, sports complexes, and so on are planned and being built. Because we go out, meet, discuss, and what's your need, and based on their needs, some of the basic infrastructure, public facilities are planned. For instance, the sport facilities is very important. We are kind of very sports-liking people, so people send their kids to the wrestling or boxing and this type of sports. So from these areas, they go about 1 hour or 2 hours to the city center for their kids to just train and come back. So it's almost half a day. So based on the discussion, we plan, for instance, sport complex or urban parks. There is an urban park in the city center. So they say, we go there specifically to bring our kids during the weekend. So we plan for it, for instance. So this type of planning is made, and this work is now ongoing. Some are already completed, some are being completed. So what is it is kind of holistic approach, because we could not really have a good example of other countries having this holistic approach, providing all the infrastructure. So this was a learning and also a good experience. So we have a good experience of working for this entire area, providing the infrastructure, and the specific that this area is the area with landowners. There are some cases you clear all the area, provide the infrastructure. But this is the cases that still are living here, and we are providing the infrastructure. And segment work. The project is a multi-sector project. It was planning, investment and finance, and technical designing, engineering designing, construction works, and social and gender issues, and so on. The biggest resettlement, 8 land parcels. In itself, it's another big issue, big topic. But just to give you an idea how big is the project, I provide this information. You have the cadastral data, do the discuss it. It's a situation exercise. It's a social, economic exercise. Public consultation, engagement, all are very big, specific fields, and we need to have people in these areas. So that really start, Okay, yes. So the core area for the housing is land. So we start there because we cannot start in all the places at the same time because of the investment, because of the human resources and so on. So the planners, we make a conceptual design, and based on this, we will start working with the people now. And also, we have major investment from the Green Climate Fund and ADB, together with the government, for energy efficiency, green houses and eco districts, because our country is very cold. We need some energy efficiency, but we are blessed with 250 days of sunshiny days, and sun means a source of energy. And if you have a good energy efficient houses, we don't really need a heating, because there are some pilot projects showing that there is no need for a connection to the central heating, because we can use the sun and also the solar panels for heating. This is another major project which is planned for 100 hectares and for 10,000 housing. It's a pilot eco district, and there are lots of different financial mechanisms, developers, households, and government involved. So this is also just now starting. And in the meantime, we have done also on our own exercise, doing some pilot projects of 20 houses. And this was acquisition, negotiation with 4 landowners and building on that land 20 housing units. So the 4 landowners get some apartment units based on the valuation of their plots. And then they have also residents who live together with them. So if I'm the landowner, maybe my child is the co-resident who is not landowner, but they are also provided opportunity for rent-to-own housing or rental housing. It was just a pilot which we are now completing in the area. And then in the meantime, we started and approached the community and organized lots of meetings how to improve the area. So it was a participatory and inclusive approach, showing the area and carrying out some surveys. Do you want to be part of the project? And if we come and find the private sector to develop the area, will you willing to be part of it? Yes, no. Majority of the people are saying yes, it's 95%. Some people are saying no, we don't want. We want to develop the area ourselves and so on. So this exercise was ongoing for quite some while, and then we identify one area where most people want to participate, and then we make a conceptual plan with the planners, and then we present and discuss with them, and the community members, they come up with different drawings, how they see it, how they want to this area. And all this is happening within the existing planning of the area. So now this housing development, not only housing development, but development of the area, because as you have seen, there are no jobs in this area. There are, but very few. So we need to discuss with them and make some land for the jobs, for the private sector to come. So we discuss how to develop the housing area, where will be the green areas, and where we can make some reserve land for the commercial spaces, which we can sell to the companies. And then also, it's a whole exercise how to attract private sector, how to build. Private sector is not really willing to go there because they have to deal with the people, and there were some attempts, redevelopment attempts, which failed. So they are not really, because they rather find empty plot and build. So we need to create a condition for the private sector as if they are building on an empty land. And for that, the government needs to take the lead and set the minimum standard, for the people to say, okay, we accept it. So, and then also we need to have factories in this area, factories which can be allowed in the residential areas, because you see the jobs are not there. So how to attract them? Maybe some tax exemption or what? So this is the task for us now to think about and come up with the solution. And this should have been done earlier, but it's better to do it even it's late. So now we are working on this project. Some lessons learned. This is a huge project, and to carry out, you need some human resources, and there is a political support. You have to have a committed mayor, committed ministers to push this type of projects, and detailed technical design. Also, there are different agencies involved. In most countries, it is about the same because you have plans. You have the urban development master planning agencies. You have the utilities companies who will approve your design, drawings, and so on. So for that, it's taking too much time, and each agency is protecting their interests, not really thinking bigger about the entire city. So these are challenges. And also you have the private companies, the engineers, the design engineers who are doing the job. You need to develop them. You have to have good people who are working on this. And then, yes, approvals from the government and municipal authorities. This is what I have discussed. There are lots of approvals. Too many people are signing, and we are losing time. And we are a very cold country with very limited construction season. We have to stop the work in October and resume sometime in April. So we are competing with time, and we need to have these approvals very quick. So there should be some special task force or something similar to this works. Project management, this is a huge project and multi-sectoral project. You need lots of people, specialized people working on this one. And then, because this is an international funded project, ADB or World Bank, they come with their safeguard requirements, which is often not in compliance with the national legislation. So you have to consider that you have to know these requirements. You have to have people who are knowledgeable and complies with it. Because of the issues with the land acquisition, the project was stopped because of the non-compliance with the ADB for exactly during the construction time. ADB said, no, you have to stop until you solve the problem with the affected people. The project has to be stopped. So this type of issues are there. For that, you need to have the knowledge and the people who do it. In general, this is I have these specific points, but I stop here, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Just a minutes he has taken. It's 25 minutes. Very impressive presentations about planning for the underdeveloped area. And also went through a very important process of these care areas in different models like central, medium, and fringe area, and he came up with a very key important concept like green housing, participatory approach, and also predicting the future requirement, and also mentioned about using the various type of planning instruments like regulatory and economic planning instruments, which is one of the tax redemption for the implementation of the land use plan. Thank you for the very impressive and detailed process of the land use planning for the care areas. So without any delay, I would like to request for our third presenter, Dr. Yoongi Kim, and he's a senior urban specialist at Korea Land and Housing Corporations, a state-owned enterprise, which develops a new city and provides public housing, working at the federal level. Yoongi has extensive work experience with low YLH means low housing. YLH, you have written YLH here. YLH. Okay, sorry. Over 34 project planning, compensation, marketing, public housing management, and international cooperation. Over the last 2 years, he advised on new capital project as assistant advisor of economic partnership. Ministry of Economic. Ethiopia to present policies for National Spatial Development Plan. As a Director of International Cooperation in 2019, he managed capacity building training program for 215 government officials from 25 developing countries, including Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Peru. He is a project management professional and engineer, urban planning, and received his doctorate in regional planning from the University of Illinois at Urban Campaign, USA, a master's degree in city planning from University of Peninsula, and an undergraduate degree in economics from Sungyangpon University, Korea. Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Namaste. First of all, I'm very privileged to be invited to this such a meaningful workshop. And today I'm going to talk about the evolution of land use planning and urban development in Korea. First, I'd like to say some introductory remarks about the topology of Korea and Seoul. And then I would like to touch upon how our capital, Seoul, has expanded and to what extent urban development has been implemented. My focus will be on Seoul and Gangnam. Gangnam, as in the very popular Korean pop song, Gangnam Style. Then I'd like to touch upon how the land pooling has been implemented so extensively in Seoul, particularly in the southern part of Seoul. Then I'd like to say something about how that extensive use of land pooling has been shifted toward another era of policy. And then followed the conclusion. Okay. So this is a topography map of Korea, and the right side is a mountainous area. Of course, the mountain height in Korea is not comparable to that of Nepal. But nevertheless, the highest mountain in Korean Peninsula is here. The height is 2,700 meters. The highest one in South Korea is in Jeju Island, about a little short of 2,000 meters. But pretty much rugged place. And according to the land cover statistics, only 3% is designated for the housing site. So we are very much limited in developing urban spaces. So topographical map of Seoul some years ago, and this is urban space in Seoul. You can see the pretty much surrounded by mountain, hilly areas. So, in other words, pretty much limited in the space available for urban expansion. This is current land use map in Seoul. The yellow or green color means residential area, with the red one commercial or business offices. Some statistics to support the picture, the previous one. about 20% consider residential use, whereas about 6% make up commercial use, and about 30% is devoted to open space, including the mountains and parks. A bit detailed map of land use plan. This is the Han River, flowing in the center of the Seoul, and pretty much you cannot see how different the green color, but the darker the green, it means the different category of residential area. So let's go in. This is what Seoul look like today. Okay, the hierarchy of our urban plan system. At the top, we have a national plan, and city level, we have a master plan, and district plan, management plan. And this, you may recall, this topic has been covered by Dr. Lee yesterday. Previous one. Yeah, okay. So, again, the Han River, the north of Han River, south of Han River. Prior to 1960, the urban area pretty much remained stagnant prior to 1962. But over the years, Seoul has to expand because of ever-growing, rapidly increasing population increase. You can see how it has grown over time. And the southern part of the Han River, it primarily developed during 1960s and 70s. This is the focus of my talk today. Okay, also, a bit more detail. You can see how the administrative boundary of Seoul has been expanded over year, alongside with the road network has been added more and over years, and urban footprint has expanded over the years. Look at some numbers. Population almost exponentially increasing over time. So over the 60s, 70s, it skyrocketed. Number of automobile, together with the population increase, is increased so sharply. Road network, the length of road and the length of water supply had to be increased accordingly. So we can imagine how hard the planners and civil engineers of Seoul government must have worked hard day and night. This is the picture of urban development planning that Seoul city government of Seoul actually drew in 1970. So this may look obscure, but this is Han River again. This portion of the city was developed, as I just mentioned, in the 70s. And I have to point out this line. This line has played a very pivotal role in expanding the southern part of Seoul. This is the new highway connecting downtown Seoul to Busan. Busan is the second largest city. The length of highway is about 400 kilometers long. The creation of this highway propelled this part of the Seoul significantly. So I will explain a little more detail in a minute. So what's the idea of developing the southern part of Seoul? Well, first of all, you rather wanted to disperse population, heavily populated, heavily concentrated in the northern part, traditional old cities, to different areas, particularly to the southern areas. this was the idea of soil development, and dispersal of population was one of the top national priorities at that time. So they started the very big land pooling project in 1970s. And in 2 years, they managed to build some houses, but you see, it very sparsely populated still. Okay, you can see how the Gangnam area, the southern part of the Seoul, has been expanded over years. You see the line, this line represents new highway connecting Seoul and Busan. So over the year, it grew very, very massive. You can see the next. This is what it looked like current days. This line, again, highway built in 1970s, connecting Seoul and the second largest city, Busan, also, which is also port city. So there are a number of legislations that supported urban development. There are some list of illustrative example, and I would say the Land District Planning Act together with the Land Readjustment Act were the two prominent laws that supported urban development in those eras. Okay, so what motivated land pooling? First of all, population increase growth too rapidly. So another motive was we had to develop certain part of the Seoul to balance, to over-concentrate north part of the Han River. And third, this is also another very important reason. The city government didn't have enough money, but they had to build on their own other infrastructure, roads, subway, sewage, drainage facilities. Further, as far as urban development is concerned, they had to resort to the urban pooling methodology. Okay, what's the characteristics of land pooling? And I believe most of you are very familiar with. First of all, no land acquisition or land expropriation is involved. And public sector, both public sector landowners could enjoy the gains. Okay. So what the achievement since 1960s and until 80s? 95%. In other words, almost all the urban service land was provided by way of land pooling in Seoul, as you can see in the picture. So again, the green color and blue color represent land pooling developed since 1960s, 70s. You can see during those 2 decades, how extensively the Gangnam area were developed by this methodology. Okay, so next slide, please. Let's look at who supplied housing in Korea. Well, the private sector, the blue line, the red line represents the public sector. Of course, private sector supplied far more housing. Okay, housing. But the story will be different when it comes to the land supply. So the land pooling was dominant until 1990s. But since 1980s, the land acquisition or land expropriation method was the dominant tool for urban development. So public land development is not a word that established academically, but we use this terminology on the practical basis. They are the major features of public land development. The most prominent feature would be the urban project would be developed by the public sector, primarily LH By the way, it stands for Korea Land and Housing Corporation that I work for, in most cases for large projects. This is the standard procedure we use for the compensated land, so I'm not going to dwell on this compensation procedure. So let me skip this slide for now. Okay, then we engaged in the developing more than dozen of new cities. In capital, this is the Seoul area. This is the surrounding province surrounding Seoul city, city of Seoul. And the green and yellow represent the first generation and second generation new cities, which are finished already. And we are early stage of creating third generation of new cities in capital region. So I'm not going to speak about the story about the new cities, but just to mention what motivated the starting the new cities. First of all, we faced with the chronic housing shortage, and particularly in 1989, within the less than a year, the apartment price rose very sharply. So government in a very rapid way. So this is my final slide. What are the findings and suggestions? Well, in the case of Korea, the land use planning was driven by the economic activities. In the case of Korea, as I mentioned already, creation new highway. The highway build up, propel huge amount of urban development. Also, so what would you use building or the land with the philosophy that who do you think should gain development profit? And you need very clear policy directions. Of course, you have to prepare the elections beforehand, not retroactively. And then your policy direction will guide market directions. So market will follow under the strong guidance of the clear, discrete government policy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kim. It's a very, last message is very important. I think we should address that. Thank you for a very nice and impressive presentation about the process of land pooling and also public land development in Korea. So without any delay, it's already, we are late, but since there is some very important message he has written, so maybe quickly I would like to take 3 questions. First, for each speaker. So, yes.
Before I answer to your question, I forgot to mention that land pooling is still around in Korea, but only for the small scale. For larger scale, land expropriation is a dominant method that Korea uses. And your question is, how you manage to persuade or engage negotiation with landowners or stakeholders or a tenant? It is a very, very difficult procedure, very tough. Of course, as a public sector, we have to persuade the landowners or tenant and people living in the project area. We persuade, we talk, discuss, sometimes the beg, sometimes threat, verbally. But you know, the people are very strong with their voices. Very limited number of people would agree that they will sell their property to us. So it depends on the duty to follow as the public sector. We promise to our Korean people that the project until when. So we have to follow our schedule, predetermined. So after many rounds of persuasion, still the people do not agree, then we have to follow legal procedure. That's the land expropriation. So there's no easy, simple answer to that.
And you have mentioned land acquisition, resettlement. And while using or implementing this plan, and what are the policies for the protection of agricultural land? Because of urbanization, it is a global phenomenon of urbanization, and there is improvement in the agricultural land. And what are the policies and program and planning to protect agricultural land in Mongolia? Thank you.
Yes. And resettlement, Mongolia is the only country that doesn't have eminent domain. So it is voluntary negotiation. We have to negotiate. If the person doesn't agree, the project stops. So it is very difficult for us because we do not have eminent domain power. We cannot expropriate. So for the urban areas, this is happening, and somehow the government officials are managing and acquiring the land very difficult. So it is because it's a voluntary negotiation. You just negotiate, and then the price increases and so on. But it has to be fair and transparent. So if I am a good negotiator and negotiate with you, and the price goes, then everybody else, the price has to go up because it's an ADB project and they request a lot. So this is the situation. For the agricultural land, also we do not have expropriation. Mostly we have big pasture lands for the animals, but also we have agricultural land in certain areas, crop growing, vegetable growing. So we don't really have expropriation. But now we have a big hydropower project in western Mongolia because there are high mountains and rivers. And then it was a big issue, and all the herders, they were against it. And now the issue went up to the Prime Minister, and then they had instructed the minister in charge to have a good negotiation. Because the herders, they claim there is not enough information, no consultation with us, just somebody comes and says you have to move out, and maybe it was because of the community engagement failure. So now it is at the Prime Minister level, and they are sending some people to discuss, and they are allocating appropriate budget for this type of activities. So, I don't know if I have answered your question, but
one last question. If there is questions, we'll take one more and move on. Thank you.
My question is to the middle speaker.
Who is paying for all the infrastructure work that you are doing in that development in Mongolia? And how do you recoup
That is it because it's ADB that's funding right now. Then in that case, how do you scale up the model in future? I mean, ADB can give you money once, But what happens when you will transform other care areas?
Yes. So right now, this is a huge investment. About 60% is from the international financial institutions like ADB, and the rest is from the government of Mongolia. And it's very low interest rates, and the financial mechanism, financial scheme is that the government will pay it back with from the state budget. So this is, and the economy is that in this area, because the provision of the infrastructure, trunk infrastructure is the responsibility of the government, which is funded from the budget, from the taxes. And this is everywhere in Mongolia, they practice. And because the state doesn't have money right away to pay for it, it borrows money, and borrows money, very soft loans, and then the income generated in the budget from the mining sector, for instance, will be used to repay the loan. But also the areas will have increased value. The land value is now increasing, and then we also need to introduce the property tax. Property taxes are not big. We do not have property taxes in Mongolia. So we need to also implement the property tax, so it will be paid to the, and also the expectation is that we will create more businesses in this area. So the businesses will pay taxes, and these taxes will be used to pay the loan. And once we have a good model, we are hoping that we will have an exemplary model of the development in this area, housing, factories, and so on, and then show it to the politicians so they will replicate it in the other areas with the state budget, state money.
So I think.
This one, may I ask one question?
Okay, this is the last one.
My question is to Dr. Chikbu. So you have raised very important issues about the tenure responsive land use planning. It's very important in our case as well. But if we look our ongoing land use planning work, we have less consideration or less discussion. We'll discuss a little bit about the risk-sensitive land use planning, and we are now focusing on this land use zone, but less discussed about this tenure security issues. So you also know about our ongoing tenure security initiatives as well. So do you have any concrete suggestion for us for our land use planning based on your past learnings? And thank you.
I can do without this. Okay. So, thanks very much for the question. Actually, what the tenure responsive land use planning does is that it creates. Okay. So, what the tenure responsive land use planning does is that it creates steps for negotiation. It creates for each step you have to. I mean, what does, for instance, tenure security actually mean? It can mean different things to different people. When I look, for instance, here in Dunica, there's already physical insecurity because it's a mountainous area. So there's the risk of landslide, and so when you have these sort of meetings within each of the tenure responsive land use planning procedure, you might be able to understand locally what these things mean to the people. What are the key risks? When we talk about, for instance, participation, what does participation mean to them? Who will participate? And is it about socioeconomic development? Sometimes it's not always that. Living condition at the local level will be more about balanced development. And it creates opportunities for engaging in agreements. So where there are disagreements, land conflicts, you can resolve them within this period and within these procedures, and they would be documented. So if, for instance, there are conflicts, obviously you can't go on until you resolve the conflict. And a resolved conflict would naturally come with some evidence, because tenure is about evidence. So you have to create agreements, each parties have to agree, and then you can move on. So it might take some time, but it allows for people who are not usually, who do not usually come out to engage in local development to engage, because in land use planning the property owners will be there, interest holders will be there. For instance, if there's a need for acquisition, when you acquire a piece of land, obviously a piece of land might have several interests in it. Just because I own the land and it's being acquired, someone else might have an interest as a tenant on the land. Someone else might have an interest as someone who's been enjoying a sort of privilege from that land. And all of these parties always have to come in together. And of course, with the, you need good leadership to make this happen. So that's why the work of mayors are important, and different sectors, and of course it provides opportunities for local people also to engage with authorities, because usually there's a gap between the locals and authorities, and when land use planning is done in this sense, authorities will be involved and everyone would have a much more shared interest. So there will be no surprises, because every surprise will be discussed on the table. So I think it is the participatory, the opportunities it creates for negotiation, for participation, for engagement, and for the people to define their vision. It would always start with a vision, naturally, that would make it end up with an outcome that is tenure secured. I don't know if I've been able to. Yeah, thank you.
Hello. So now we are at the end of this plenary session 3, and at the end of this session I would like to request to the chair to hand over the certificates for the presenters, and I would like to call upon Dr. Eugene Chigbu to receive the certificate and the token of love. Thank you. And I would also request Mr. Chinzurik Batbilik to receive the certificate and token of love. Dr. Juni Kim, I request you to receive the certificate of presentation and token of love. Thank you for all the presenters. Now I would like to call upon Mr. Ganesh Prasad Bhatta, the Executive Director, over here.
Thank you, Siva. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Reshma Shrestha for chairing the session. And now I have general announcement over here. We'll be having parallel session now onwards. Some of you have already received an email inviting you to the special session that is designed for special session on land use planning for Nepal. So I will also like to request the mayors and some of the personalities I will talk in person during the tea break, so who will join the special session that is specifically will be based on the activities being done by survey department. And the rest of the participants will be requested to join the technical session over the admin building hall, so that we can have some technical presentation over there. So with this, I thank you everyone, and please join the tea, and then it may take 15 to 10 minutes because we have to readjust the hall. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.